All right, let me set up my camera a little bit here. Hold on a sec. Okay, 1 second. Come on, I hate this thing. All right, hopefully that's enough lighting in here. So, checking my mic settings. Let me move the mic a little bit closer to me so you're able to hear me a little bit better. Hello. All right. I'm going to test a couple things here before I get started. This is only like my second, at least second or third time doing a stream. Maybe it's been more, but yeah. Hold on a sec. Testing. Okay, good. Sorry about the brief delay. I'm just making sure that everything here is ready to go before I do anything here. So, all right. So I think I've got everything set, whatever you want to call me. It doesn't really matter. So I asked Twitter about what sort of typology topics people wanted me to talk about, whether it be about socionics, Enneagram, I guess MBTI, although I don't really talk about MBTI that much. But so Megan Lavoda asked me, how has typology improved my life? And I'm going to split this up into two parts. First, talking about socionics, how socionics has improved my life. And in the second half, I'm going to talk about how Enneagram has improved my life. Because they both have improved my life in different ways, and they've affected me in different ways as well. Socionics more so in the realm with dealing with other people and understanding how they function, at least to some extent. Of course, with the human condition and with, how we are raised and what cultures we come from and what we believe in, that can change, that can vary. But there's still some patterns that you see and some things that you see with quadra values, which are why. Hello, Megan. Thanks for joining me tonight and things like that. So I'm going to start with that to begin. So I've been involved in typology for roughly 2 years. I don't necessarily have the right timestamp. I guess involved full time for 2 years, give or take. Because I've heard of typology, I recognized it from friends that I currently have or friends that are no longer my friends, people that have been interested in it. And again, I know with being involved with psychology, it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but with people who are involved in psych, they've talked about it as well. And I never really had an interest in it. I think I took the test in high school, but I do not remember the result that I received at all. And it was probably wrong because, as you know, a lot of MBTI tests is 80%. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to put too much stock into what I received. And even going into college, I kept hearing about it. You know, people saying like, I'm an INFJ, I'm super rare. I'm an INTJ, I'm super rare. You know, I'm an ENFP, I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, you know, I kind of had the same thought as when a new popular trend comes out, or when there's a new diet fad or something like that, or a new BuzzFeed quiz, whatever. Or it kind of also reminded me back in the past when they used to have those like MySpace surveys or MySpace little games, which I know I'm showing my age here, but you know, I'm like, is this really a thing that people take seriously? Like, is this something that is worth investing in? Because I don't see the point in it, really. I mean, if it helps other people, then I have absolutely no issue with it. But again, I don't understand, or like, I don't see the point to it. And I tried getting into typology, and it wasn't 16 personalities, but I took one of those personality tests. And again, unreliable. And I tested as, excuse me, I tested as an INTJ, which for my type, which I'll get into what it is a very common mistype. And being a gamma negativist, but the other type of gamma negativist, again, there seem to be a lot of misconceptions and a lot of parallels that, in this case, ILIs and ESI share. But in interacting with people who are actually ILIs, and actually my best male friend, my closest male friend is an ILI, though we share similarities, what we value and how we handle ourselves are completely different. And I know that I tend to get annoyed with ILIs because of their lack of SE, because they have suggestive SE. To me, when I see ILIs, there are a lot of talk, but not a lot of action. However, you know, in tandem, they see me as being overly impulsive and reckless and with a lack of direction, which, fair enough, I understand where they're coming from. But anyway, in interacting with these people, I kept thinking, well, I mean, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but clearly I'm not this type, and I care way too much about other people, whereas you guys don't care at all. So, yeah, there's a bit of a divide there. Whereas with so then I thought maybe INFJ would be the right type, which is another common mistype. And again, some similarities, but again, you had, you know, IEIs in this case, which again, I know that socionics and MBTI do not have a 1-to-1 ratio, and not all types translate, which I'll get to that. But, you know, interacting with other IEIs and seeing how they act, I'm like, you know, again, it's the suggestive SE was pissing me off when I was interacting with them. Less than ILIs, they don't annoy me as much, but I would get annoyed when like I would do something and they'd be like supporting me, like, yeah, go for it. I'm like, you should be, you know, like, why are you supporting me? Go do what you're supposed to do. Don't worry about me. Like, stop kissing up to me. Like, just go away. Go do your own thing, which I know is kind of mean, but again, interacting with these IIs. And another thing I noticed is that they cared so much about what other people thought of them, and like the whole mood of the room, which I know is part of FA ego. And like any change, or when someone was upset or they perceived that someone was upset, then everything would change and they would get like super withdrawn and super weird about it. And whereas for me, I would get annoyed. I would just get flat out annoyed and be like, you know, why are you acting so dumb? And I would say, like, why are you acting like this? Stop it. Whereas they would not. They would just not say a thing and just kind of fly underneath the radar. And to me, I didn't understand this. I'm like, well, why? Until, again, getting to that. So I kind of abandoned typology for a while because I'm like, again, I don't see the point in this. I mean, again, if it helps, I just thought it was intuitives basically, and I'll be completely honest, this is going to sound very vulgar. I just thought that a lot of typology was just intuitives jacking each other off, which in some cases it very much is. But I've noticed now that people are starting to move past that. So, like I said, 2-ish years ago, I started talking to one of my closest friends who I'm still friends with now, and Angela, and she is an EIE. And I guess the closest equivalent, quote unquote, is ENFJ. And Megan Lavoda, who asked me this question to begin with, and who left a comment, is also EIE. And Kat Passionate, who you all know if you follow my Twitter or if you're involved in Transcendence, which check that group out, is also an EIE. So I was talking to my friend Angela, and she's very much into typology. I think almost every EIE I've met has been into typology, or at least into something, some sort of system. And not like an SI system. I want to make that very clear, because they have polar SI, but something to where you can communicate with people better, or where you can understand people on a deeper perspective besides just, hey, how you doing sort of thing. And I vented my frustrations about typology and how I'm like, okay, well, I can relate to these types in some way, but I can't really relate completely. And even worse, like the ISFP descriptions, which, a lot of people try to type like ISFP as ESI, and you read the ISFP descriptions and it sounds like you mix together the INFP and the ISFJ description. I have yet to meet an ESI that is like this hippie-ish, peace-loving, sort of person. Like I have yet to meet an ESI like that at all. And when I read those descriptions, because she kind of brought up that parallel, and I'm thinking, I don't relate to this at all. Like nothing in this description sounds at all like my values or what I do. But then she said, well, have you heard about socionics? And I heard about it, but it was something that seemed very alien to me. And it is a bit confusing. And there is a really steep learning curve for those who have not studied socionics or don't understand how the system works. It's not an easy system to learn. Again, and it took me at least 2 years to get the basics down. And I still feel like I don't always know a lot. But anyway, she told me, have you ever considered ESI? And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, what does ESI stand for? It stands for Ethical Sensing Introvert. And it's your FI, or introverted feeling, or introverted ethics, is your lead function, and it has to deal with relationships. In socionics, it's known as the relationship function. The emotional distance between you, the FI user, and either another person, or you and a thing, or you and an idea, and then you making judgment functions on making judgment functions based on how much you want to invest yourself, or even if you want to invest yourself at all. And SE, the auxiliary function or creative function, whatever you want to call it, is known as the force function in socionics. And with MBTI, I've seen a lot of people label this like using your 5 senses to like make a judgment. I'm like, no. Excuse me. SE is a perceiving function. Yes, it's known as the force function, but you're using SE to look at the outside world around you, and you're trying to exert your force. You're trying to basically bend reality to your will and trying to use it to your advantage. That's why SE egos tend to be a lot more direct, and they don't tend to beat around the bush, and they can come off a bit more aggressive than the intuitive types, because we don't like to just sit idly and wait. If there are things that we can do, or at least that we can get across as quickly as possible and make our lives easier and possibly your lives easier, then we are going to do it. Does it always mean that it'll work out? Of course not. But give and take. Oh, hi, Jen. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So when I read that description, I was thinking to myself, oh my God. Like, and some of the ESI descriptions, like Stadievskaya, who she herself was an ESI, if I remember correctly. Kat, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But some of the ESI descriptions are very, very dramatic. But hi there. My husband's making a brief appearance. Bye. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. So, where was I? I hate when this happens. I lose my point. Ah, shoot. If I remember my point, I will come back to it. But anyway, so how socionics has improved my life. I kind of gave a backstory, and I apologize if that was a bit long. I just wanted to give a brief exposition. But I guess I've always wanted to learn how to communicate with people because that has been something that I personally have struggled with for a long time. On the one hand, it's like I want to be gentle and I want to be loving towards people and I want to be kind towards people. On the other hand, I am incredibly impatient and I don't necessarily have the patience or even the direction as to know what to do or how to handle other people, right? So, and growing up, I'm not going to say that I felt misunderstood because that's not the issue that I had. Well, I guess that's not the complete issue that I had. I guess growing up because I mean, to give you an idea, both my parents did not have valued FI. I mean, I'm an FI dom for crying out loud, but neither one of my parents had valued FI. I mean, my mother was an SEI, so she's SI first, then followed by FE. And while she has demonstrative FI, it's not the same thing as having, FI base. It's not, she can deal with FI in a 4D way, but it's not something that she cares about all that much. And my dad is FI polar. He's an SLE. So my dad and I could connect on SE sort of things. And we're both very practically minded people. Him even more so because, again, he has TI second. But I guess, and part of me feels bad about saying this, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was a disconnect, but I never felt like there was always some sort of weird tension between either my mom and I or my dad and I. And again, not because I dislike them. I love them both equally. But I could never feel a sense of closeness to them. And I know that my aggressiveness and how I handled myself and how I would constantly talk back or question a lot of things that my parents did wrong or were inconsistent about, which I'll also talk about that in the Enneagram section. You wait for that because that's going to be a whole fucking mess. But, a lot of my aggressive tendencies and how direct I am really rubbed my mother the wrong way because she is, she is SI leading and sorry about the motorcycle in the background. She is SI leading and again, with FE, and she would constantly tell me to stop losing your temper, tone it back, stop being so loud. It was always you're too loud, you're too noisy, you're too abrasive, you're too aggressive, you're acting like this. Women don't act like this. It was always you're too this. Whereas my dad would get on my case because he said, he's you're letting other people affect you too much, which, to be fair, yes, that is true. But again, it was he would be you're affecting people too much, but he would also try to do the FE, tertiary FE kind of rallying people. So I always kind of felt okay, what are you doing, Dad? Oh, by the way, hi, Max. Welcome to my video. Welcome to the video. But anyway, so yeah, I always never could communicate the way that I wanted to with my parents. Again, I'm not saying anything bad about them at all. It just, I noticed that with the differences in perception and in judgment functions. But I will say that I was incredibly lucky having my sister, who is my semi-dual. She's an LSE. And despite the fact that she is not my dual, I was able to understand TE, and she kind of acted as a de facto parent in a way, because my parents expected a lot from her. And she's also a very responsible person. And she was able to kind of take on a lot and teach me and all that good stuff. But even with my older sister, like, she gave me the TE I needed. I gave her the FI I needed. But there's also what I learned about semi-duality in our relationship. We got along and we loved each other, but there was always like little fights that we would get into all the time. Like, if she tried to flex any on me and I'm any polar, then I would just be stubborn and I would do the direct opposite of what idea she had just to be spiteful. Or if I tried to flex an eye on her, then she would try to do the opposite of what I wanted to do just to be spiteful. And there's like little pecking moment sort of a thing. But overall, great relationship, just like stupid sibling things. And then my other sisters in IEE, like Iz in chat, also like Nate, who you guys know about. And with my sister, my IEE sister, that's the sister I consider myself closest to. And though she's not FI leading, we're able to connect on a very deep level, and a lot of the issues that I've had with other people or with communicating, she's been able to fix or kind of turn around for the better. And the same goes for her too, for the most part, not with the relationships, but I'm not going to talk about that tonight. And I think having two sisters that do value TE and FI, despite the fact that they're not in the same quadrant as I am, helped me kind of realize how to utilize those functions, and also just like not feel so misunderstood about them, because I had that. And then the youngest in my family is an LSI, and we have the same perceiving functions, right? So she's a little firecracker. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. I apologize. So how Socionics has improved my life is, now when I started Socionics, I worked from the bottom down. I learned about all the quadra values and then kind of broke them down into the Riemann dichotomies, and then broke it down further to model, I think it's model A, and then blah, blah, blah. But that's not important. So Socionics has helped improve my life in the fact that it helps me understand, at least from a very rough perspective, how people operate and how the different quadra values come into play. Why one type may annoy me more than another type, or why the values of one quadra may confuse me, but for another quadra, it doesn't. For example, like with alpha quadra, I'm always super confused by alpha. I know that a lot of alphas do not like gamma types, which I completely understand where they're coming from. Alpha types want to experiment and they want to talk about things, and they are constantly amazed and have a lot of imagination, and want to constantly, they're the closed mouth concept, right? Like, don't close my mouth. They want to just keep talking and enjoy all these different experiences, which I'm not saying is a bad thing by any means. And this could be completely wrong too. This is just my own perception. But to me, I never quite understood it, because like for me, I have to have a point if I want to do something. Like, I don't do something unless I want to do it, or unless it leads to something better, or unless it leads to something productive, right? Like, I can't just talk about something just to talk about something. like I have to have some sort of investment in it to be interested. And with alpha types, I feel like they don't, which again, I can see why a lot of alpha types do not like gamma types, and why a lot of alphas perceive gammas as being like stick in the mud, boring, you know, killjoys. I get the killjoy comment all the time, but you know, but even despite the fact that they are my opposing quadra, I appreciate alphas because they're the type of people who are very much themselves, but at the same time, they also want to include everyone else and just be chill, because they are democratic like gammas are. They want to, you know, just have everybody talk and be peaceful. And though I don't necessarily agree with that concept, I can respect it because they're so passionate about it. But yeah, it's definitely, and again, knowing a lot of different alpha types has helped me understand them more. And I realized that in some cases I can come off like super aggressive and super like unwilling to I guess play with different ideas. And I know that to alphas I may come off as closed-minded, but with their help, they've helped me open up my mind a little bit more. And that includes SCIs and ESCs. They're part of this as well. Betas are by far the most interesting quadrant to me, just because, to be honest, I don't even know a word to describe them other than intense. Like, that's the only word that I can use to describe them, at least right now. I would say betas have helped me in learning how to let loose and not necessarily take things as seriously as I do, which is kind of difficult. But I mean, any beta, like beta types are, they're the kind of types who the comedy style and their style talking to each other is kind of like roasting each other, like pissing matches, because they are an aristocratic type. It is kind of like testing out the hierarchy, and it's making sure that the people that they deal with are not weak, or, you know, are able to kind of stand up to their more fiery and passionate style, more or less. And to some people, they can look just downright crazy. And yeah, sometimes they can be a little bit crazy. But I will say that the types that I tend to hang out with the most are beta types. And the type that I tend to communicate the best with would be beta types. For the fact that, I mean, we have the NI and the SE, but I feel like their FE doesn't necessarily irritate me as much as it does sometimes with alphas, because again, they have that NI and they're like trying to gain a vision. Of course, is it how I would do things? Absolutely not. But again, it's like, it doesn't feel like it's intruding, or that it's like trying to pick out the SI details or trying to like any its way out. So, you know, I avoid some of the perception issues that I tend to have with alpha or delta types as well. I would say the only problem that I really have with beta is that they're very idealistic, almost a little too idealistic, without really considering sort of the real world implications. But again, it's not necessarily like the worst thing ever, but it's just something I noticed. But like I said, they've helped improve me and just kind of like just having fun, and also I guess trying to implement healthy competition in me, because growing up, my family was very much not a competitive family. And this is going to sound so weird, but it pissed me off, because they were like, you know, everybody's a winner, you know, don't be mean. Everybody, you know, everybody's number one. We're all like, eh. Which, if you're talking about it from a humanistic standpoint, like how humans are, then fine. But if you're talking about playing like a game, or you're playing like soccer, like an actual competitive sport, it's like, no. Like, what? Like, I mean, on a grander scale, yeah, but if you're playing soccer, no, a team wins or loses. Like, there is no middle ground. You're playing trivia, someone wins. Jeopardy, someone wins. Like, and I think that annoyed me growing up, because I feel like I wanted to compete in more things, and I wanted to do more things involving competition, but I wasn't really allowed that opportunity, except for solo ensemble contests. But even then, you know, everybody gets awarded some sort of medal or some sort of like achievement, right? So I never felt like there were any stakes involved or like any fun to it. It just kind of felt like, okay, I get more music credits for high school. Awesome. Not really. But yeah, betas have helped improve me to kind of like light a fire under my ass and actually do things rather than just kind of mope around and pity myself because they hate that shit. They're just like, go out into the world sort of thing. Gamma. I would say, my best male friend is a Gamma. I'm a Gamma. I would say Gamma types have helped me improve by encouraging me. I would say by far my own Quadra, despite how much I complain about them, it's been the most encouraging because obviously we get each other because we all share the same functions. And I feel like I can talk to my fellow Gamma type, the few that I know, about the issues that I have, and they're like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that, or they've dealt with something similar, and like they can kind of keep me on track and stuff like that sort of thing. I don't really have much to say about Gammas because, again, I don't know too many aside from the ones that I know from Transcendence or from my own experience, and there's not really much to talk about in that regard. Deltas. Interesting Quadra for me. But Deltas, I've had the most experience in dealing with. More so the SLIs and the LSCs versus like IEs or EIIs. But they tend to be the Quadra that I've been the most attracted to, at least romantically speaking. I mean, I'm married to an SLI, for fuck's sake. And I have two sisters that are, again, I like the idea of deltas, and like deltas have helped me become more comfortable in my own skin because deltas, of course, are all about expressing themselves. These are my things. Whenever I think of delta, I don't know why, but that's like my go-to catchphrase. But so deltas are very much about the method. Like the method is because, sorry, let me start that over. So gammas and deltas are very individualistic, very focused on individualism. With Gamma, it's more about their own influence. They want to find their own way to do things or to make their way to find power, whatever that may be, prestige, influence, money, who knows. With Deltas, on the other hand, they want to create their own perfect method or perfect expression. Their method is their form of individuality. Their expressions are who they are as people and extensions of who they are as people. And I know that growing up, I felt like I could never really be super comfortable in expressing how I truly was, or at least like express myself in a way that felt natural. But fortunately, with the Delta types that I know, they've encouraged me and they've said, they like how I act and how straight I am with people and how, even if I am being a dick, I'm willing to step up and say, hey, sorry about how I was acting. And again, despite those differences, they've helped me kind of realize the strengths that I have and I guess like help build on those strengths and try to find ways to implement said strengths. So, yeah. It's kind of hard to talk about how socionics has improved my life because I feel like even now it feels like I'm just saying, oh, I have so many friends, or like, I basically socionics has helped me find a really good solid friend group. So, and that took longer than I intended it to, but yeah, so socionics, like I said, the different quadras have helped me kind of open up my mind and like not only become more comfortable with myself as a person, but help with communication as well. But anyway, I'm going to end that topic. I'm going to start talking about Enneagram now because Enneagram, this one is going to be a lot more in depth. And this is one that, the one that I'm more looking forward to talking about. And especially people are not too familiar, say with sixes or even with the fixes or whatever. So I like to call the Enneagram acceptable masochism. Because if you really want to hurt yourself and if you really, really are looking for a way to make you feel like absolute shit, but in a weird unconscious way, you want to learn about it even more. Kind of that weird morbid curiosity, right? An Enneagram is perfect because that's exactly what it is, at least in my perspective. And of course, if you talk to other types, if you talk to like a 9 or a 7, they may have a completely different take. But so Enneagram was the typology system that I actually got into first. And it's been a very strange journey, starting from where I started to where I ended up, which I basically went 360, not 180, 360, because I started with the type that I had, doubted it for 2 freaking years, went around, and then ended up at the same type, at least kind of, sort of. So learning about Enneagram, trying to learn how the system worked, and still at the time, it was not something that I understood completely. And again, I didn't really know how the wings worked or how instinctual variance worked or anything like that. Just the basic core problems of each of the Enneagram types. So I ended up typing at least close, not quite, but I tested as a 6 wing 7, I think like SOSX, which, okay, 6 wing 7 is correct. Synflow is also correct, but SOSX is not correct. I'm actually SPSO, self-preservation social. Some of these things sound fine. Some of these things I can kind of relate to. Some things I can't. But I don't really know if I'm that type. And then so thought I was a 6. Then there was a brief period where I thought I was a 2. That did not last long. Then I thought I was a 1 for a while, which I have a 1 fix. And then for the longest time, I thought that I was a 4 wing 3, which again, I have a 4 in my fix as well. And when you have any of the reactive types, which reactive would be 4, 6, and 8, if you have 2 of those, or even 3 of those, if you're triple reactive, if you're 4, 6, 8, God help you if you are, some of the types can appear very similar, and especially SP4 and SP6 can look very similar. And especially SX4 and SX6 can look similar. Like I know an SX4 SCE who can come off 6-ish, and I know an SX6 SCE as well who comes off. I thought she was a 4 for a while, but turns out she's a 6 like myself, but SX. So again, I thought that I was a 4 for a while because a lot of the dark feelings that I have and kind of the inferiority complex and feeling like I'm a burden to other people and that I'm like defective. But then I realized that it's not coming from a place of, it's not like introjection. It's not my primary defense mechanism. It's coming from a place of pure fear. Based on growing up, I grew up in not the nicest of neighborhoods and not the nicest of places. And also grew up, very, very, very poor. So not a lot of things to protect me and not a lot of things to rely on. And there are a lot of skills and a lot of things that I had to learn growing up. And I had to become reliant on myself very fast. And because I didn't necessarily have a lot of guidance in my life, and because a lot of the guidance that I received was very inconsistent, I would get yelled at for one thing, and then the next week I wouldn't get yelled at for it, or they'd be like, "Oh, it's totally fine." I never felt like there were any clear rules or boundaries established, right? So I never felt like I could trust anyone or that I could even trust myself, because it's like, am I wrong? Am I acting in the wrong? Am I acting in the right? Are they wrong? Are they right? Are they exercising their authority clearly? Are they not? And authority is a huge, huge thing with 6s. You'll often notice that it's either we're very pro-authority or very anti-authority, or we'll go into states where we're kind of back and forth between the two. And I know that I've been guilty of both. And I've noticed too that probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with being a 6 is the projection. Projection is a huge thing. Because again, you get caught up in this fear web, right? Because you can't trust anybody else, because of all the wounds that you're trying to either run away from or try to pretend that you're not scared and fight them back, rather than dealing with them in a constructive manner. When it comes back to haunt you, then all of a sudden you start twisting reality with your own perception, and that becomes like a whole sticky mess, right? So here I am. There have been issues that I dealt with in the past, and I know that I've talked about some of them. All these past wounds coming back up to the surface. But rather than dealing with them, or rather than allowing myself to feel the pain and to actually understand where this fear is coming from and where this hurt is coming from, whether it was feeling abandoned as a child, or feeling like I didn't have a childhood, or I didn't have teenage years because I felt like I constantly either had to fight, or I constantly had to run, or I constantly had to fend for myself, rather than allowing myself to feel the pain, or being gentle on myself, beating myself up for having needs, I would project that negativity onto other people, and I would accuse them of things that they did not do, or even some of the things that come up that, I think about people. It feels like in my mind, it's just constant noise 24/7, and it's so draining, and it's so tough, because it feels like I can't be 100% straight with people, even because it's just like I feel like what I'm thinking and what I'm saying are two different things, and then I think too much about what I'm saying, and then that screws up things even further, and blah 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 blah. You get the idea. So when I finally found out that I was a 6, which was actually not that long ago, I think a couple months ago, it was both the greatest and the worst day of my life. Greatest day because it's like, yay, I finally figured out what my type is. And then when you figure out what your type is, you're like, God damn it, I'm one of the worst types in Enneagram. Shit, God damn it. And I will say that, an Enneagram is a system that tries to help us transcend the ego and not subject ourselves to the torture that we put ourselves through, and call out ourselves for doing the things that we do in the first place, in order for us to become better people and to not constantly go back into the really, really, really hard. But I will say that in learning Enneagram, and especially with interacting with people like Kat, Max, Megan, Nate, anyone else that I may be forgetting, people who know Enneagram and who have taken the time to study it, I understand why now, especially with having people who are sympathetic, or even if we don't necessarily share the same core type, or if we share the same fix or the same instinctual variant, there could be a lot of different, there could be a lot of different ways that we can find common ground. And I feel like I don't have to constantly worry about being afraid to talk about my issues. A thing that 6s deal with, and especially because the 6 is also a super ego type. The super ego types, if I remember correctly, again, correct me if I'm wrong, are 1, 2, and 6. I'm double super ego because I have 1 and 6. And 6s can be in a rough position, because especially if they have a 1 fix or a 2 fix or both, they often can feel like they're not doing enough for other people, or not doing enough for the community. And, I guess my biggest struggle is I have a hard time acknowledging my own needs, sorry, let me take that back a little bit. It's not that I have a hard time acknowledging my own needs. Like, I know what they are, but I constantly have that thought in the back of my mind where it's either like, that I'm selfish and ungrateful for having those needs, or like if I choose to rest, or if I choose to tend to myself rather than deal with other people, then I feel terrible. I feel that guilt. I feel like I'm not doing enough ever. And then the self-doubt kicks in. I'm like, am I a good person or am I a monster? Can I even trust myself? I say that I care more about other people than I do myself. But do I really care if I'm constantly worrying more about myself than other people? You get what I'm saying, right? You have all these inconsistent thoughts. But with learning Enneagram, what I try to do now, and I've talked a little bit about this on Twitter, is I've tried to learn how to ground myself. And whenever I'm by myself, if I have those thoughts where I'm worrying about like what other people think or what I think, or if I have those moments of self-doubt or deprecating myself, which happen all the time, or if I think that a person is going to leave or, leave me or, like get rid of the friendship, or if a person's mad at me, it could be as simple and as like stupid as I think someone is mad at me, even if they are not, or if they haven't been mad at me. When these thoughts plague my mind, what I used to do, and sometimes I still do this, I make mistakes. What I used to do is, I used to think these thoughts and think them over and over, and then I would try to find random little tidbits of information, whether they were related or not, never mattered, but just try to rationalize this opinion that I had, or like this suspicion that I had. And then again, you would project that outward onto the person whenever you felt like you were under threat, or when you're afraid. And again, it could be something just as simple as, I think someone is mad at me. I do this all the time with people. I'm like, are you mad at me? And people are like, what the hell are you talking about? No. And even I had a meltdown once where my friend and I were hanging out. We had like a karaoke night. We were just having fun, blah, blah, blah. And he didn't talk to me for like 2 days. And I'm like, oh my God, I said something. I probably made him feel vulnerable. And now he probably never wants to talk to me again. And he ended up messaging me later on saying that he just got drunk and he passed out. It had nothing to do with what I was doing. Like, he's like, I just got drunk, I passed out, and I didn't get your message until, and then I felt like a complete moron. Yeah, it's just like this constant state of paranoia and this constant state of like, oh my God, who's watching me? Or like, what am I doing? Or like you feel like the room around you has like a bunch of spikes or is on fire. Okay, well, not that extreme, but that's like, give it a mental image. Like that's what you envision in your head. Or like, even if I'm taking the garbage out, I'll be like, oh shit, if I open up the bin, then a bunch of raccoons are just gonna go out and attack my arm and I'm gonna get rabies and I'm going to die. Like that's the kind of thought process that I have. And especially after my husband got attacked by a raccoon at his former job, I always have that in the back of my mind, like, oh shit, that could happen to me too. Oh my God. And it's like, oh, it's exhausting. Wow, and I thought I had a beverage. Yeah, Max, it's not fun. It is not good. When I talk to people, I mean, I joke about it, but a lot of the joking is hiding the fact that it's like so exhausting and that it's so like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Stop it, just stop it, sort of thing. Yeah, overthinking the social thing, overthinking everything, the social thing. Like even with a job once, my previous job when I worked at the hospital, when they said, oh, you have to do drug screening, background check, all the normal stuff you have to do for a job, I said, oh, it might take like possibly a week, maybe a little bit longer to process the results, which again is normal. And then of course that week is up and I start getting paranoid. It's like, oh God, what if something happened? And what if something didn't add up and blah, blah, even though there was nothing wrong and it all went fine, or it's like, what if the world explodes, or what if I cause something to make like, but anyway, I could go on and on about this topic. I already went off on some paranoid tangent here. But anyway, so what I try to do now and how Enneagram has helped me has I try to ground myself. If I have those thoughts, which again happen all the time, what I try to do now is I try to treat myself like I'd be treating a close friend. I try to, instead of subjectively try to explore the topic and try to link things together, which never ends well, I try to treat myself like a good friend or like someone I want to care about. It does feel kind of like you're parenting yourself, right? Kind of mending the fences for where things were missing in your childhood. And I try to ask myself, okay, you're having this thought about, like, say if you think a person is mad at you, or say if you think something is wrong. The one question that I ask myself constantly is this thought helping you? Is this thought truly beneficial to your well-being? Regardless of anything that's going on, or regardless of whatever else may be happening, is this beneficial to you? Or is this something that you need to spend more energy on? And it's either it's either A, there is no answer, or B, the answer is no, which if there is no answer, then I pretty much answered the question already. If I can't come up with an answer, then that means no, right? So when I have those thoughts and those paranoia spells, and when I ask that question, when I can't come up with anything, after that moment, when I have that pause or when I have that no, then I ask myself, okay, what is really the problem here? Like, what's actually going on? And this is the hard part. This is the part that takes a lot of discipline, a lot of practice, and a lot of people around you that are supportive and that want the best for you, and that are willing to listen. Because, I mean, and this is even something that I still struggle with to this day. And this is not an end-all be-all by far. It is not. And again, but I state this because it has helped me tremendously. Again, asking yourself, what is really going on here? Besides the projection, besides the bullshit, you're not here with anyone else here. I mean, I am now because I'm in a live stream, but when I'm by myself, no one else is around you. You have nothing to fear. You are here in a comfortable space with your thoughts and your emotions. What is truly wrong? Is it pain from the past that is resurfacing that you've hid underground for 20-something years? Is it something that happened today that maybe didn't bother you in the moment, or maybe it did bother you, but you didn't want to talk about it, or maybe you just didn't want to cause a fuss? Is it something that disappointed you? Is it something that you're worried about for the future? Stuff like that. And admittedly, there have been times where I've had to ask for help or for guidance, because sometimes emotionally I can get too overwhelmed, or I can get too caught up in beating myself up and the self-deprecation. And even humor, as helpful, and humor is such a double-edged sword for sixes, because on the one hand you can talk about your problems a lot easier through humor, but at the same time it's a shield. And it's not exactly getting to the root of your problems. It's more so just like painting a nice coat of paint on a load of shit that you're trying to hide. Which I know is a call out, but it's the truth. Anyway, yeah, like, and if I don't always know, and if I truly feel instinctually like something is wrong, or if I feel like I need help, it's hard for me to ask for help, because I was constantly raised to be self-reliant and I had to rely on myself. But I don't feel ashamed about it anymore because, humans, we're all kind of fucked up in our own weird, wacky ways. So who am I to judge and who am I to say what is right and what is wrong? And I think despite the fact that people have a lot of pain, have a lot of trauma, have a lot of things that they don't know what to do, I think that's also a good thing in the fact that, and especially with people that I've met through Enneagram and through typology, people are very sympathetic to my cause, and I'm sympathetic for them as well. I need to take a sip of water. Yeah, that has helped tremendously. And again, with learning about Enneagram and having faith is a big thing for 6. Having faith is a huge point of growth for 6. And not just in yourself and not just learning discipline and learning methods that'll help you not go too far into rationalization and projection land, but also in just doing shit. I would say, now I don't know if I've tweeted about this or not, and if I haven't, then I probably will at some point, but the 2 most powerful words that a 6 can learn is fuck it. Fuck it are the 2 most powerful words a 6 can learn and utilize to their advantage, because we spend so much time in our heads and so much time trying to troubleshoot and figure out what's wrong, rather than what can we actually do as people to improve the world or to make things right or to be loyal and to stand by our loved ones and our community, right? So there have been some times where I just get so tired, and I get so tired of thinking, and I'm like, I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of being miserable. I'm tired of feeling sorry for myself. I'm tired of constantly feeling like I'm like, what's going on? And I just want to just do shit. And then all my friends with 8 fixes are like, then what are you waiting for? Just go. Stop talking about it and go. But in regards to that, speaking of 8 fixes and 8 and the ladder. So what was I going to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, came back to me. Another way that Enneagram has improved me is learning about the other types. I will say gut types to all the gut type cores. You guys are the saviors of Enneagram. I know that some people may not agree with me, but oh my gosh, I am so thankful for you guys. If you have a gut, or if you have even an 8 core or something, you guys, I swear to God, you guys are the best. And especially since I do not have an 8. Every gut type that I've met has helped me out in so many different ways that without them, there is no way in hell that I would be where I am now. 8s, for example, or people with an 8 fix have really helped me just step up, and they've riled me up. Of course, at first, when learning about Enneagram, I used to shy away, or I used to try to fight back, or get reactive, try to scream louder, but that's not exactly the best way to handle problems. And that sort of fuck it, or I'm just gonna do it, it's gonna be great. That sort of mentality has come from 8s or 8 fixes, but predominantly 8s. And they've taught me to just not give a shit about what's going on inside my head and just to try something. Even last year, I took an improv class, which I never in a million years thought I would take. I was not very good at said improv class, but I did it. I did it because I wanted to get over a fear of mine in interacting with other people and speaking in front of people and, trying to get more adjusted to thinking on my feet, which is something, again, I was not good at that improv class, and it's not something that I would do again, but without the help of other people and without that encouragement, I never would have done it, and I never would have had that experience. And I've met a lot of great people from doing more things and from involving myself. And for, the eights kind of like cracking the whip and being like, let's go. Like, don't hesitate any longer. Don't give it any more thought. Just stop thinking about it. Just do. And that has improved me so much, because then I feel like there are actually people that support me, and then I'm not just like wandering off by myself and that I'm scared. Nines also have been a huge help for me as well. I'm married to a nine. He is the greatest. It's actually our anniversary today. He's asleep because he has to wake up early, but nines have helped me learn how to relax. And the point of growth for sixes is to become more relaxed and to just be at peace and to just have faith in things and to just like kind of let go. And I know that nines, because they go to six under stress, a lot of the nines can understand where I'm coming from. And especially my husband, he knows my thought patterns, and he knows whenever I get into bad states or states of stress. And he knows how to knock it out of me. He knows how to get me back into reality. And with nines, they've helped me learn how to appreciate life and how to find like the little joys in the small things and in the things that matter. Like, you may not think about them in that moment, or you may not necessarily consider the perspective in general, but nines have just such an interesting way of viewing the world and such a comfortable way of viewing the world that it again, it helps me kind of settle down and not worry about things that like need to be done, or like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. They kind of say, no, it's okay. Like, you may not be able to do it now, but that's not to say that you can't do it tomorrow. Or like, like, maybe don't worry about it now. We'll take a step back. We'll take a moment to breathe, and then we'll try it some other time. Like, that's like a very nine kind of way. Can their passive aggressiveness get to me? Yes. But again, it's a small price to pay for what they've done. And they've really helped settle me down and become more comfortable. And I believe I read somewhere that a lot of sixes are with nines or married to nines, which I am by no means surprised by. I think that it is a good couple, because again, you have like the sixes who are super nervous and not always sure of themselves and kind of like, and then the nines who are like very can be kind of lax at times and just like very chill, go with the flow. And the strengths and weaknesses of each type definitely balance out the two. Ones also have been a beneficial type. Being a one fix, I definitely feel connection to ones. And I feel like with ones, because they're constantly going through a bunch of different problems, I feel very sympathetic to them, and I also want to help them more, because I think ones get a very bad reputation, and because of that because the constant judgment and the constant needing to correct, because of their defense mechanism and because of what happened to them, being a six, and again, being a six having a one fix, I'm like, oh shit, like, yeah, I can relate to that. And they're both super ego types as well. I would say ones tend to be plagued, at least in my perception, ones seem to be perspective rather. Ones seem to be plagued more by that super ego-ness than sixes, at least again from what I've viewed. And I think that a lot of people just see them as like super critical and judgmental and nitpicky, and not the fact that ones care so much about people and things, and that they really want the best for everyone, and that they're trying their best to provide, and they're trying their best to make the world a better place, make things a better place. And they are, at least, I mean, there are unhealthy ones, but at least for the ones, they're trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to be morally just. And I know that can rub a lot of people, that can rub a lot of people the wrong way. But again, I've never really had too many issues with ones. Actually, one of my best friends is an ESI 1-Wing 9 SPSO, and a lot of people at first do not like him. And to be fair, I did not like him at first either, because he seemed like super morally uptight and very nitpicky. And he is. But again, when I got to know him more and more, we actually hung out in Atlanta for 2 days, because neither one of us had been there. Neither one of us knew what we were doing, but we're like, hey, let's hang out. Like, you seem all right, blah, blah, blah. And also, we did have some, like, previous issues that we kind of needed to work out. But then meeting this person and hearing about his struggle and understanding where he's coming from, I'm like, oh, shit. Like, again, not the same problem, but I understand where you're coming from. And, yeah, so. Oh, I got a new comment. Hello. I'm a 9-Wing 1, but whenever I catch myself being passive-aggressive, I feel so guilty about it. Oh. Yeah, I think with 9s, I think with 9-Wing 1, because, like, you know, the gut types have to deal with anger, right? With 9-Wing 1s especially, it can be very tough, because 9-Wing 8s are a bit more overt with their anger. Like, my husband will be chill for, like, a long time, and then all of a sudden, just, like, 9 rage out of the world. Just be like, rah! I'm so angry, blah, out of nowhere. And I'm like, what the hell? But with 9-Wing 1s, it is a lot less apparent, and it is a lot more uptight. Now, with you said that you feel guilty about it. Hyla, I apologize. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I would say Hyla. It's interesting that you say that you feel guilty about it. Now, I don't know if that would be the 1-Wing or, you know. But with 9s, a lot of the time, they feel guilty about addressing their own needs, because maybe growing up they felt like their needs were not addressed growing up. And Max, who is also a 9, Max, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but yeah, like, a lot of 9s maybe felt like their needs were being addressed, or like maybe they felt like their needs weren't important. And passive aggressiveness is a common issue that you see with 9s, but a lot of the times it's like it's an unconscious thing, or they're not aware that they're doing it. And even when my husband does it, I know that he's not intending to be like that. Or a lot of the times too is my husband, when he's actually angry with me, but he doesn't necessarily know how to approach it, he'll blame the anger on me on something else. Like, one time we were driving somewhere, and he was angry I knew he was angry with me, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And then he went on this rant about these, like, glass bowls that we have that were up on the fridge, and apparently one almost fell on his head, which, again, that was a mistake I made. But the thing is, he had yes, I was talking to you, Max. I was saying that if this is Max Sterner, right? Or is this a different Max? I just want to make sure, because I don't recognize your name on here, because I don't use YouTube that much. I was saying about with 9s how oh, I'm sorry. Different. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that you were a Maxer. That's a 9. I apologize about that. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that mistake. But anyway, so yeah, with 9s, a lot of the times they feel like they're unable to address their needs. But my husband, back to what I was saying, my husband had this huge rant about these bowls, which, again, I knew that he wasn't really angry about the bowls, that he was it was clearly something else. But I tried to be nice about it too. I was like, you know, are you really angry about the bowls, or is there something else that you're not talking about? And I told him, I'm like, I won't be mad, I won't yell, just tell me what's wrong. And then I don't even remember what the issue was, but he told me, and And then when he told me, I was like, oh, and I apologized because I realized, yeah, like I completely understand why you're angry. And again, I think with nines, it can be hard for them because it's uncomfortable to confront those feelings. And, the nine defense mechanism is narcotization. So they will try to numb out their feelings or like watch TV or go to sleep or find something to stimulate them rather than deal with their uncomfortable feelings. Because again, they feel like they can't talk about them, or they feel like they might not be valued, or that the person who they're with might not take them seriously or might leave them or whatever. But yeah. So yeah, that kind of veered a little bit from this topic, but I do think it's good to talk about. And if I can ever talk about nines, because I feel like nines are a type that, even though they are very common, they're a type that a lot of people don't necessarily, at least on the surface, don't necessarily see all their issues. And they do not necessarily, maybe they might not even be aware of their issues, or at least comfortably acknowledge their issues. So, yeah. And I feel like even on Typology Twitter, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. These are my opinions. Oh, by the way, Type 9s, we love you. Like, don't be afraid to voice your concerns. Advocating for Type 9s. But yeah, so I think that's is that everything? Yeah, I think that's everything. So, yeah, basically, Enneagram, like socionics in a nutshell, has helped me in communication with other people. And I will say that socionics is hard to talk about without another person. It's not that I'm uncomfortable in talking about the others about the subject, but I'd rather have another person with me just to talk about the topic, because it is more fun with another person. Because Enneagram is a bit more personal and it's a bit more raw, and it's helping, and Enneagram has helped me become more comfortable with the flaws that I have and not beat myself up as much, or at the very least, learning how to, I guess, revamp my instinct and like try to not do the things that I do, or find better ways to deal with them, more or less. Again, it's always a work in progress. Yeah, I would definitely love to make a video on Type 9s. That is definitely on my to-do list. And I will apologize also because I haven't been that active on YouTube. It's been a bit crazy for me right now, and there's been a lot going on. And my schedule is going to be a bit up in the air. But yeah, a video on Type 9s would be fantastic. Because I hear about it a lot on Twitter, and I do make a lot of jokes about nines because they are a type that I dearly love and that amuse me. But I would like to make a video dedicating it to nines. So, excuse me. Yeah. This video, I guess, wasn't as cohesive as I would like, but I did have a lot of fun making it, and I'm going to end it here. It's been about an hour, almost an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate you guys hanging out, leaving your comments, and for everyone who has liked it. Let's see. So I see a comment from Jansing. So where are your Enneagram connoisseurs hanging out if not on YouTube? I am mostly on Twitter. You can follow me at Kid Kitchen, which I will write a comment on how to find me. This is I'm writing my Twitter handle here in the so yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. That's where I tend to post most of my content. And thank you, Jen. And if you have any further questions or requests, you can most likely reach me there. Thank you, Iz. And also you can follow Iz at Your Friend Iz as well on Twitter. She is an IEE 7 Wing 8 SOSX. Is it 278? Is that your tri-type? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm so bad at remembering like the tri-types. I remember the cores. But yeah, you could follow me. You could follow Iz, who's been in the comments. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad I got that right. You can follow me. You can follow Iz. You can follow Megan Lavoda, who inspired me to make this live stream. You can follow Nate Rasa at Kidarasa, Cat Passionate. Yeah, pretty much most of my content will be on Twitter, almost always. And if I do more content on YouTube, which I really want to do, and I want to be more consistent because I've been absent for a while, and even if I have posted, I've been very inconsistent. I want to do more of this. And I'm not saying that this is a definite, but there is a high chance that I may be collaborating with other people in the future. Again, not saying that it's confirmed. However, be on the lookout on my Twitter and on YouTube for that, because there are some people in the typology community, and some of which you may already know, that I want to collaborate with and that I want to talk more about. Socionics, Enneagram, whatever. Or even just like shoot the shit. Who knows? So anyway, I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Thank you guys for all the interactions, and thank you for listening. This is Katie signing out. Good night, everybody.